Okay. So, hi everybody at the office and everybody on the call. Liz is in that empty room over there. She's trying to figure herself out. Great. Awesome. Well, I'm really glad you guys could all make it to this meeting. This is more of an all faculty meeting than the Teamstream meetings we had been having in the earlier part of the year. Yeah, if the feed starts to get slow, it's probably our video feed. So just turn like Luke just did. Go blank. I'm still getting feedback somewhere. You guys okay in the Pendleton room?
We're good. Yeah.
We got some very nice chocolate chip cookies, by the way.
Oh, so we're all missing out on those over here. Are you sure you're not getting feedback? Because I'm getting feedback.
Daniel, that's not the feedback we wanted.
All right, great. Well, I'm really glad we could all make it. I really hope you guys are all taking care of yourself and getting as much sleep as you can and trying to not touch your face as much as possible. And we'll just all sort of monitor ourselves as to where things are going to go with the pandemic, possible pandemic, however you want to categorize what's going on right now. So, but we are thinking of you. If there's anything we can do for you or your community, please reach out and know that we are thinking about you all. So I have an agenda. Let me get to it. So if you were to look at your Google event, I actually sort of put some numbers on there. I just wanted to update everybody on where we are as far as the number of students we have and the number of courses we have. So spring 2019 is in week 4 or so. Five, sorry, week 5. And we have 30 students in 5 courses that we're running in the spring. We just tried to map out different students' course trajectories, and that's something Christy's working on with them individually. Of course, that can change with whatever happens with them, but at the moment we have 23 students that are going to be still with us in the fall of 2020. Faculty College has, it's going to be communications focused, but it's going to be that May 11th through 13th days. And also just to give you an update that the Dean's Council is really working on updating all of our handbooks and documents like that. So we are this week going to update the faculty handbook. In the May meeting, we'll have a new version of the academic catalog and possibly some other documents for the faculty to look over and approve for that.
Kelly,
yes.
Kelly, excuse me, this is Anthony. What did you say was May 11th through 13th? I didn't catch that.
So May 11th through 13th is going to be a faculty college. We're going to talk a lot about we have a new communications plan that's going into effect. So if you can make it up to the office, that'd be great. Otherwise, I think we're going to do, it's going to be some remote sessions as well.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions on what I just said? I think I talked really fast because I was reading. Okay. Okay, so I had 3 sort of special guests for this session. And the first is Chris is going to talk with us about potential partnerships and how that affects faculty at Future Generations. So Chris, I hope you're there. I really can't see very much.
I'm here. Hi, thanks. So as everyone knows from reading the strategic plan, one of the important aspects of the plan is that we're going to try to grow our business by growing our non-formal education sector. And I'm going to be leading that. We're growing that sector with the hopes of both bringing in more students and revenue for its own purpose, but also with the hopes that some of those students will eventually transition over into the master's program. And so we're looking to do this. We're looking for opportunities to partner with other organizations where we might be able to provide community development training. Anything from short 2 to 3 day seminars to the 4 course certificates that we already describe in our academic catalog. Our objective then is to tap into these partner organizations' training budgets or maybe their marketing lists to find essentially funded students. That is, students that we're not paying for, but that someone else is paying for. So examples of what we're currently working on, not all, these are all very much in the beginning stages and they may not all pan out in the long run, but this is what we're currently working on. World Scouts is still a potential partner. We've got a couple of different avenues that we're trying to work on with them. One is with Bharat Scouts in India. Did I pronounce that correctly, Daniel? All right, I keep working on that. And they may be, the hope is that they will come into our certificate program, so 4 courses, and then some of them may eventually hopefully continue on with the master's program. We are also toying with the idea or trying to develop the idea of doing some short-term training at the Africa Jamboree in Uganda this summer. Or what's the name of the Jamboree? Is it All Africa Jamboree or something like that? But it's in Uganda this summer, and that would be, if that works out, that would be some adult leader training coupled with some very basic scout training. There may also be an opportunity at some point to do some training in Saudi Arabia with scouts there. We recently submitted a concept note to the Hilton Foundation to provide training to Catholic sisters around start a pilot program to train Catholic sisters in Appalachia and in Haiti. We are working with Native American community to deliver training to them to sort of help them move from protest movement to community development, and we're currently looking to submit a proposal to the Luce Foundation to help fund that. I'm going to be working with Dan Wessner to possibly develop a workforce leaders or workforce training program with OWN Semiconductor, starting out in Vietnam, and that has the potential to expand globally. And we're going to continue to try to work with AmeriCorps to bring in more people into our MA program as well as certificate program. And finally, we are going to be exploring the possibility of working with Rotary, whose mission seems to align very closely with ours. So that's what we're working on right now. And what I wanted to ask you, faculty, for help on is if you have ideas for other potential partners. We're talking about NGOs or other schools, other universities, maybe local government or local civic organizations where funding might be readily available or at least accessible. That means obviously not dependent on future generations to fund. So that might include training budgets or clients or members of these organizations who may be willing to pay for training themselves to either get credit or not for credit training. And these could be US organizations or international organizations. And a personal contact would be preferable if you, better if you know someone that you can say, hey, are you interested in this, rather than just an idea like I've heard of this organization somewhere, but I don't know anyone there. So that's sort of, pass me the ideas. I may not get to them immediately, but I'm just sort of trying to gather ideas, sort of see what the universe of possibility is for developing these partnerships. Any questions on that?
Hey, Chris, this is Anthony.
Hi. You're someone I want to talk to.
Oh, well, a couple of organizations jump to mind. Again, I'm not sure about the funding part of it. It's potentially there. One is NATO, the National Association of Development Organizations. It has all the regional and some local economic development people across the country, and I'm guessing there would be some openness to a different approach. They're kind of pretty traditional for the most part, but there are some open minds, and I know some folks there. And at the other end of the economic development spectrum, community development, is the New Economy Coalition. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Pretty much a youth-driven, fairly radical critique of the economy and politics, but have a lot of practitioners in their midst. I think they'd find an association with future generations to be pretty interesting. Again, I don't know about the money side, but if you want, I can make some connections to both of them.
Yeah, that'd be terrific. Thank you, Anthony. That'd be great. That's exactly the sort of those sound to be exactly the sort of organizations we're looking to at least explore.
Another is Waisili, the Young Southeast Asian Leadership Initiative. It started with Obama in Africa,
Okay.
but it's a State Department program. We've made an initial contact in DC through Daniel, somebody at State.
Okay.
Tennessee State and University of Montana have the Waisili contract for Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I think we're closer to DC and things that would be appealing to young Southeast Asian leaders. As nice as Tennessee and Montana.
It's a great contact. Somebody should track it, but you have every 5 years they open the window to become a partner organization. So I don't know when that window back opens up again, but 2 years ago it was closed for a couple of years.
But it's, the window is open. We've got to get
Okay.
the window.
So you have to hit that window, and the two contracts. One is the Southeast Asia, and the other is Africa.
Okay.
Yali is the African one, Young African Leaders.
Okay.
It's a great idea.
Or something like that. I made initial tries there.
We have contacts internally.
Yeah. The nice thing about this, aside from the fact that you get leaders and all, is it's got a particularly high overhead rate that goes to the institution.
And do we have contacts either at this
We
place, or is it?
we potentially do through Susan Stroud.
So yeah, I mean, we could talk a little bit about the Yali attempts that I made.
And I'll also mention our graduates from January mentioned there's really a keen interest in Vietnam for intensive language study during the summers in the States. So Vietnamese families with means will pay a lot of money to immerse their kid in a program in the States if it's the right content.
Great. Well, keep the good ideas flowing towards Chris. On that same sort of note, we have a lot of not only those kind of contact resources, but also each of us kind of have some areas of expertise that we might not utilize in this part of our job on our roles, but we do in our larger lives. And so I'm really talking also to the adjunct faculty who aren't even on this call but are going to get this recording. And so I've developed a what I call a potential course form, and I'll send it out with the minutes for this meeting, and it's on the general resources folder in the drive. But it's basically, it's not a commitment by future generations by any stretch, but it's really good for us to know how close people are to, or how developed they are in different types of training. They could be the form has non-formal, and it also has formal education based on the credit hours process. So I can fill you in on how that would work. But basically, just to get a really good idea of what resources we have internally. This is my son Eli, and so to send those back through to me so we can have them on file. So if we get a shot in the dark to train up a bunch of Riyadh scouts in tree forestry, then we know whether we can do that or not.
Tree forestry.
I'm looking out the window. So I'll send the form. It's really basic, just some ideas about how close the course is to being done. And then, of course, the resources that we have internally to kind of get that either online or sort of developed fully. So just keep an eye out for that. Any questions on what I just said, and or back to Chris, and then we can move to the next subject. Great. Okay, so Christy was going to fill us in on some sort of continuing developments within the way our courses are structured and things like that. Over to you, Christy.
All right, thanks, Kelly. So one of the things that we've been trying to do for a while is to introduce flexibility into our program. And that has been, in the past, that's been more of a case-by-case, one-on-one kind of basis, trying to get students through the program. And something that we're trying to do now is institutionalize it more, using options that have actually been in our academic catalog, but we haven't used them to the fullest. And so what I'd like to do is just go over a few of these, get any questions or input from you, and possibly suggestions. I think it's great. The way that I see the direction of this meeting going is getting more and more input from the faculty and from our expertise, which is cool. So one of the things that we're trying to emphasize is prior learning assessment, and that's giving students academic credit for experiences in learning that they actually have, which is a perfect fit for our program, because we have mostly, in many cases, I would say mostly, mid-level professionals in our program. And so they've done a lot of training and have a lot of expertise and experience already before coming to us. So we have one of our students, I'm not going to mention specific names here, but one of our students who has already jumped into that process, another I'm talking with that is really interested in it. And one thing this has happened with this first student, it's helping her graduate. And so she's going to get her final credits through graduating. So PLA is the initiative that we're doing. Another thing that we're just starting is an internship. I've talked to 4 students that are doing an internship. These are all, at this point, US students. But so this is something that it's like informally described as big community labs. So they're doing their work in their community. They're engaging a supervisor or someone that they mentor, that they work closely with in their community, and it's work. It's doing for the most part a special project in their community that they're getting credit for then through the internship. And this again is also in the academic catalog. And one thing that we're trying to encourage with this is that they also see how to incorporate it with the SDGs. SDGs is a focus that we're trying to do, and I think that we're trying to be more explicit about it, because if you look at the list of the 17 SDGs, we really fit into several. I know that the Songs Project here has been really explicit about matching some of the target goals and the general SDGs to their work. And so our students can do the same, and the internship is a great place to make that match. They also need to link it to our program learning outcomes, so it's relevant to their community, but also to our master's degree. And the same with the prior learning assessment. It needs to be aligned with our program learning outcomes and with a specific course. That's one kind of restriction with the PLA. So those are 2 PLA internship. Another that we've used more, and it's kind of been a catch-all, but I think now with these other opportunities, we can define these more as the independent study. We've got a couple working with the independent study, and again, this needs to align with our PLOs, but it gives students the freedom to explore an area that they're interested in that might not be addressed by our courses. So it gives us area of increased relevancy and just doing something that they're passionate about. One thing that just came up, actually, Kelly, I think you brought this up, supervised research. And this is another area and you brought this up with one of our students, and it might be work. Some of our students are actually, many of our students are interested in going on for a PhD, but since a practicum isn't a part of our program anymore, they're not really doing that scholarly research that they might want to do. And so this option of a supervised research gives them that opportunity to engage in research supervised by our faculty or potentially someone from the outside, but to do maybe more of a traditional research kind of focus. So those are options. Another one, and this is where it would be great to have some of your input, is our students have also wrapped into an independent study the possibility of TAing for a course and getting credit for kind of an advanced version of that course. One or two of our students have already done that. And that, you know, they always say you learn more by teaching. And so this gives the opportunity for our students to kind of do the graduate assistantship thing and get credit for it, and also delve into that material more by participating in giving feedback and in actually teaching and doing things like that. And Naomi, you might be able to speak to the experience you had with one of our students doing that if you wanted to. But those are I think that pretty much covers all the options. But what we're finding is not only does this give students another pathway to graduation, which is so important, because, you know, our courses are fairly limited. So sometimes it's hard giving them an on-time pathway to their graduation. And so, no, you have to, sorry, this course isn't being offered. You have to wait a whole nother semester to graduate. We don't want to do that. And so we want to give them this more flexible pathway. And I think that's what this does through these possibilities. And these are in our catalog. So it's not like we're just pulling things out of the air, trying to give them an opportunity to graduate. Any questions about that or comments about it?
Chrissy, it's Scott. Where would the PLA come in the sequence of a student's learning journey here at the university? Do they have to take an X number of courses before they can sign up for PLA? Yeah,
so that's a really good question, and that's something that that Jesse and I have talked about, that because PLA can be a great incentive for students coming in when we have an initial conversation with them, even before possibly completing the admissions process, where they say, look, you've got all this experience. Why don't you take a look at the courses in our catalog, let's talk through them. And you might, like in nonprofit management, we have a lot of leaders in nonprofit NGOs and stuff. And so you might be able to, in a conversation that I would probably have, then ascertain what they might be how they might be able to get credit for it. So that would be a conversation at the beginning. Because we're just getting into this now, it has been students that are midway through the degree that are exploring it. The way that we do this is I've developed a Moodle course called the Prior Learning Seminar, and they can get 2 credits for going through that seminar. And then depending on the assessment after that, based on what they produced in the seminar, they would get the additional credit for the specific course that they PLA'd out of, if you can, where they presented enough documentation to show that they had met those requirements. If they don't need those 2 credits for the prior learning seminar, they can use this Moodle course as a guide that takes them step by step through the process, because it's a complicated enough process, and we want to it has to be a rigorous portfolio to get those credits. That was one thing that someone that we were talking to initially said, you really got to present your documentation, because you know, to our accreditation process, they really look at it carefully. And also, it's normally undergraduate institutions that do PLA. So for a graduate institution to do it, they would look particularly close at the portfolios and at what you're doing. So
okay, and it's Scott again. Just a follow-up question: is it still the case that we're talking about up to 1/3 of required courses for an MA, so up to 12 hours would be
up to 12 hours, and that and that is also our limit for transfer credits. That's one other thing that we did this semester. we did, we transferred in credits, and I worked with Jody pretty closely on that to transfer in credits for one of our US students. And so, but our limit in our catalog is a third, so it's 12 credits.
Can I follow on with what Chris said? Kelly, please. One aspect of our institutional accreditation that we've not talked about recently, but as we're bringing in some of these new, not new, as we're recognizing some of our old points, as Christy correctly mentioned, is another old point that we need to recognize, which is that in 2015, this institution did quite a clever arabesque with the Higher Learning Commission and got grandfathered in as a competency-based education institution. The Higher Learning Commission was in some difficulty with the U.S. Department of Department of Education, and we managed to get onto in the process of them fixing up their paperwork. We did a really clever job, and we got on the list of HLC, CBE organizations. So as we are doing all this documentation now that Christy correctly is mentioning, we need to, wherever possible, be talking about ourselves as recognized in competency-based education. And the whole development of the lab is perfect in this. But please, folks, when you're doing your paperwork, for reasons that will become clear as the strategic plan unfolds over the next year, we need to really take advantage of the fact that we got grandfathered in with CBE. We did not get direct assessment, but we have CBE, competency-based education, and that saved us about $50,000 site visit if we would have to, and a whole bunch of paperwork if we would have to apply for it now. So please use that as one of our old items to bring forward in our new development of the strategic plan.
And can you remind us very briefly how we should be
The good question.
recognizing that?
In your case, for instance, show that they're getting competencies in using maps, not just understanding maps.
Okay.
So the key point in all of our courses is to show that we're giving competencies that people are using, not just applied competence. It fits our degree perfectly. And that's how we squeeze through, as I say, on this paperwork arabesque. But it just emphasizes all the more that the labs have to show performance of competencies.
Okay, thank you.
It's a big deal for where we're going.
Yeah, I think that's okay. I think Naomi, that's a good point. And I think that they're almost completely different camps, what we're doing now and CBE. And so I think I'll put on the schedule for May to try and see where we need to be thinking and how do we think in these totally different camps at the same time. I do on that new course form do mention, can you see this as a CBE course? Explain. So some courses work better. It's a little easier. Nursing as an industry is really CBE heavy because there's a lot of checkpoints that you can get to and a lot of tasks you need to achieve. And so it's not the kind of thing that we take the mapping course and to make it a CBE course. You know, it's a little more complicated than that. So, but yes, thank you, Daniel, for that. Did anybody have any other things on this subject? Otherwise, we're going to pivot to recruitment. So I see that the month of March and April being our window for bringing in any new fall 2020 students. Our numbers are okay, but as you're in the community and talking to different people, as you heard from Christy, there's a lot of different options. You don't just have to go with the courses that are in our course descriptions. You can blend in some previous work you've done, some transfer credits from another institution, do some internships and independent studies, that sort of thing. The other thing I wanted to make you all aware of is we've structured the program now so that you can do, if you bring in enough extra credits from outside, you can almost do the degree in a year. if you work really hard. You can really basically do it in 18 months. If you bring in some credits and some PLA, some transfer credits. You can do the 2-year version, which is what we kind of say standard for the US market. And then if you have someone who's like, I really can't fit in full-time study with my full-time job and my full-time life, we have it structured so you can do it in a 3-year, 2 courses a semester load. And so if that's what they're interested in, that's definitely option. So I just wanted to give you guys all those kind of options to play with. I know we're always full of options and that's not really our problem, but if you're talking to people and they seem interested, please send them towards me, towards info@future.edu. Sorry, all of the Future.edu page is getting an update as well. So I wanted to pass it. So we're talking about what's going on in the near future. It's not happening right this moment, and so I wanted to show you. We're working on each of the courses for the fall to have their own landing page on the website and an easy navigation to get there, and then some buttons on that page to just sign up for that course. So I wanted to show you the one for, it's not done yet, but the one for 21st Century Communications has sort of a blurb about the course and the blurb about the instructor, and then 2 buttons down here to say, go ahead and just sign up. Okay, so this is when you're out there talking about individual courses, Anthony, then you can say, hey, this is my page, go ahead and sign up. And so those will be live and ready to go in very short time, and I'll send out a message that things are ready to go. So I just wanted you guys to be sort of prepped about what's coming down the pike in the next week or 2, because I do see if we're going to get any new students for the fall, now is the time. Happy for them to start in fall 2021. Don't try to force them into something, but just keeping that at our forefront. And so I think Erin's supposed to be there.
She's here. Hey, girl.
Hi. So if you want to, Erin was going to tell us about content capture. Go ahead, Erin.
Thank you. So one thing that I keep getting called back in on is that we are now changing this to content collection. So we're not capturing content. No, not at all. I keep doing it. Thank you, Naomi, in particular, for helping us with that. Our language reflecting our values. So this is very brief, but 2 things that Bruce and I are working quite diligently on. One is the rollout for the website redesign. So, and that I mentioned in the staff meeting a couple of weeks ago around one of our biggest priorities for communications is actually redesigning the website to be more user-friendly. So that will dovetail with a lot of what Kelly's talking about in terms of how you can find courses, action-oriented website to be pushing things through. But aligned with that is also collecting content, and in particular from your courses, from the personnel that you're bringing in, the students, the really amazing sort of nuggets of awesome that right now tend to disappear into the ethers. This is the content that we want to start collecting and sharing. So in 2 different ways. One is more of the long-term strategy for content collection. That's living on the website, if it's blogging, if it's newsletters, if it's using it for reports and things like that. So the strategy behind that, and the other is for digital marketing. So really quick, great stuff that we're going to put out on social. And so it's 2 sort of different strategies that have come from that, and it's 2 different ways of sort of looking at the content that you're collecting. The great thing to do that we're doing right now is actually just a template and essentially an intake form, like a Google form that you can easily upload content. So you can prepare us in advance for what is to come. If you have a guest lecturer coming in, if you have a student with a really groovy idea that you want to share, etc., you can give us some prep time in advance, and then whatever you're capturing as well, or sorry, collecting as well in the moment that you think could be relevant for us to share. So that process, the goal is end of day next Friday. At the latest, you'll have at least the template that we're using, the process that we'd like, and some sort of basic FAQs for that. And then you can also connect with myself or Bruce directly on some of the storytelling pieces and the larger chunks, and then myself and Daniel Farmer and Shane, who are leading on the digital marketing side. So the idea is that we take the bulk of the work off of everyone for feeling like things are slipping through the cracks or missing, or you feel like you have to upload, or who do I have to send this to? We take that on for you, and you have a pretty standard format for giving us really, really good content that's going to boost what you're doing and the collective whole more rapidly. And so the goal of this is to be building a bit of an archive of some really, really amazing content, continuing to build on that, but to have really relevant and quick and actually like, just really relevant content that we can be pushing out quite quickly and on a regular basis be out in the world and living out in the world with a lot of our collective stuff. So, so happy to answer any questions about what that can look like, but hopefully it just gives some peace of mind that that's a huge priority for us moving forward. Yeah. Callie, is that what you wanted?
Yeah, I was just seeing if there was any questions. Okay. So yeah, as you're out there and sending back to Erin the things that you're planning for your courses, that's great to be thinking about fall 2020. We are teaching 3 sort of sexy classes. One being Anthony Flacavento's class called Bottom Up Economics. One with Andrea, which is 21st Century Communications, which is about using communication to affect community change. And then our flagship course, Intro to Community Change, is also being taught starting in the fall. So just keep those in mind as sort of if people are interested in a one-off, if they want to try it out before they buy it kind of situation. This would be fall 2020 would be a great semester for them to try out any of those or all of those courses. So just to keep that in mind. I just had a couple of little quick tips and tricks when you're thinking about running your courses. The first one being using the scheduler in Moodle. So we tend to have it somewhere through the course of the course, we have one-on-one sessions with students, and this becomes really hard to manage with time zone changes, and often you have to plan 1 or 2 of them before you actually manage to meet. Moodle has a really cool tool called Scheduler, and I was just going to show you kind of what it looks like. It looks like a little calendar there, and you can schedule, you can set up slots. You as the instructor can set up the slots, and then the slots sit there, and students can come and just choose that slot to meet with you. And the cool thing is that it changes it. You can set it up in your time zone for the time zones you are available, and then it will switch it to the time zone for the student if they've changed the time zone in Moodle, which they should do. So, and then it gives them a notification and you a notification that the meeting is going to be happening. So it's actually a really great tool to utilize within Moodle, because we have so much trouble over time zones. So keep that in mind. If you want some help setting those up, Paula can help you. We can set it up for you, but we just need to know what the blocks of time that you want students to meet you for, how long you want those blocks to be, and that kind of thing. There's some really there's a lot of interesting extra features as usual with Moodle. You can have them create a form that they have to upload with the invitation, so that they're kind of prepping and you're prepping for the call, different things like that. So I'm hoping that we can continue to use it pretty regularly with our Moodle courses. And the other thing I wanted to share with you was I find that a lot of people have trouble finding Zoom rooms this morning, as an example. So in our institution, I try to make it a practice that we all meet. When you're meeting with me, you're meeting in my Zoom room. So if you look at the top, it says 9372. So that's Kelly Fleming's room. And we all try to keep, have meetings within our Zoom room. And so what's the benefit of that is when you start to have multiple meetings with the same person, then you can benefit from the little join button. And I took a picture of it because I can't share while on Zoom what it looks like. Now I'm just trying to find it. Okay, so I put it in in the chat so the people online can see it, and I don't know if you'll be able to pull it up in the Pendleton room there. And it basically just looks like it's the button next to the new meeting button, and there's a little drop down caret, and it lists out all the meetings that you've recently been in. So you can see I've been in different meetings. And so that's when I meet with Christy, we just look through there and decide whose room. You still have to decide whose room you're going to go to, right? But meet in that room, and actually that button is really helpful and good for students too. Because if students are constantly going to the same study, your room to meet with you, that's kind of one of the faster ways to get there. So those are my very two quick, and I always talk way too quickly, tips on Moodle and running your courses. I didn't really have anything else for this meeting. Does anyone have anything they'd like to ask or have a comment?
Can we ask faculty who are teaching right now how their course is going, and if they have any, just kind of a report on that?
Sure.
Mary is on, I think, and Dan is on, and it'd be nice to hear from them a little bit.
Sure. You want to start, Dan? Yeah.
Okay, just do my present students want to leave the room, please? Well, I would say the course is going well. It's sustainable communities, sustainable livelihood. So it's more down my line, have more things, personal examples that I can give. There is, as usual, some separation coming between those that keep up and are active and those that don't. So I would say it's about normal in that regard. Been doing experimented. One thing I can tell is that experimented last term with having an outside speaker where we recorded an interview, had people watch the video, and then had the outside person come in and give an question and answer period. And I think that works well. I've got a couple of more examples lined up like that. So these are people on the ground doing it, and it takes a little time to interview and ahead of time and edit the video and stuff like that. But I think it really helps for it not just to be either a group discussion or the professor talking, having some different faces with relevant on the ground. So I would say that's moving forward. The video editing to have a good looking video of an interview takes so much work. And I seem to be going backwards rather than forwards, but yeah, I would say we're moving.
Thanks, Dan. Mary, do you want to talk to your class?
Sure. Yeah, it is going. We think it's going well. We're seeing a little bit of the gap that emerging that Dan just spoke about between people who keep up and who don't. But we do have some very enthusiastic people who are right on top of their game. It really helped to do the pre-course survey to find out what sorts of social research methods people have already had experience with, and without even knowing that they were indeed social research methods. And a number of people commented on that. We have the advantage this year of being able to call on a student who went through the course last year, and that's Rosie Lynch, who will be coming in tomorrow morning to share with students how she made it through that daunting gauntlet of steps to get you from the very beginning into your final social research methods project report. And the labs, the things that students want to try are obviously very much influenced by some of the work that they've done previously, particularly Naomi's work with mapping. The students are very eager to get out there and actually use their mapping skills. So speaking to the competencies that Daniel was urging us to keep in mind, that's very much front and center. Anyway, I think it's going very well. We have a great group of students this year too. Very interesting projects. Seeing Anthony's face right there, I'm thinking there's somebody, Daniel, I think his name is, I don't have all the names straight yet, is working with seeds in Africa, and how to, ensure the availability of healthy seeds in the marketplace. And that kind of really, and somebody else is working with a community that actually lives outside of the capital of Ethiopia, really in a slum, and doing community organizing there. I'm just impressed, as I was last year, with the range of communities that we can be serving through this program around the world. That's about all I have to say right now. Yeah.
Kelly, Dan Westner's at the end of the table here.
Yeah,
Also.
Dan Westner.
Yeah, so Liz and I co-teach lifelong development education. And while we have just 5 enrolled master's students in it, we have basically everybody from cohort 1 retaking the class because they want to be there alongside their colleagues. So that's another 5 people that are in there. And then we have 4 auditors who are really key people in Vietnam for just taking the course to scale. So they're not enrolled, but they're observing, and they're doing the activities, and they're trying to figure out what Future Generations is. And I would say that the timeliness of the course is kind of amazing with coronavirus and with a new set of requirements from the Ministry of Education. Very briefly, the ministry has said by 2021, next year, they want to see a completely new curriculum written by Vietnamese for Vietnamese from grade 3 to grade 12 on things such as the Sustainable Development Goals. So to be offering this course in Vietnam right now with these auditors and our students, kind of cool.
Awesome. Yeah. I checked it in Erica, who's teaching nonprofit management this week. And yeah, things are going along in that class. Trying to remember what she said, but yeah, so we're just tweaking a little stuff that sort of slipped through the cracks as far as the Moodle courses. So we're working on some of that stuff as well to kind of make sure that all the courses have all the little bells and whistles that we thought were there, but somehow aren't there. So so that's been really good. Thanks, Christy. That was a good suggestion. And if anyone has anything else, otherwise we can say bye. Great. Well, thanks to everybody for making the time to come. We'll have another faculty meeting for the teaching faculty in next month. And then we'll have sort of a fuller faculty meeting in the May schedule. Okay.
Thank you.
Feel
All
better.
right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye. Thanks.
Yeah, bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Steve.